Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Today's guest is Michael Pope. Michael has 20 plus years in IT and leadership development and has transformed software developers into people developers. He is an international keynote speaker and leadership coach, known as the hesitation breaker and the author of Doers Win the Day. He speaks to high achievers, corporate professionals, and coaches leaders on productivity, leadership, and overcoming hesitation. Michael, welcome to Speaking with Confidence.
Tim, thanks for having me on Speaking with Confidence.
You know, we connected, on a Zoom call, a couple months ago, but in person in August, and we'll come back to that. But before we get started, I want to bring up something that really kind of resonated with me. I saw a post that you did on LinkedIn, a few weeks ago, where you said you went and witnessed your sons get black belt in karate.
Yes.
Right? And one of the things that what resonates with me is people that actually talk about their families and their stories and in their posts, because for me, that's what I do. My stories are about me and my kids, my family, whatever it is. And to me, that shows a different kind of person and what family actually means to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It means a whole lot to me for sure. My wife and I have 3 sons and they're all in karate, 3 black belts. So yeah. Dude,
that's awesome. You don't have to worry about, protecting your house. I mean, everything's all taken care of. But to me, it's important and shows what other people are important. What is important to other people? Let's just put it that way. And that's kind of how we, or how I look at it. It's about that. But we connected at International Maxwell Conference in August.
Yep.
And you were on stage, and we connected after that. And when people go on stage, maybe I look at things differently. I remember what you talked about. You talked about the value framework and teaching people how to use, go high level and that type of thing. So, I'm sure a lot of people come off and say, Michael, you did a great job. But what did you learn? But you're an introvert like I am. How do you react and how do you handle as soon as you get off stage and people are bum rushing you? They want to talk to you, want to congratulate, get pictures and that type of thing.
Yeah, great question, Tim. As an introvert, and you know how introverts are, right? Normally we want to be alone, especially after giving of ourselves. A lot of times we want to go back and just recharge. What I've learned is, as a speaker, I owe it to my audience to be present. Right. So if people want to come up and take pictures, they want to come up and ask questions, I owe it to them to be present. So what I do is I've learned how to quickly, within seconds, just refresh my mind and change my state to a state of giving.
Right.
And I'm looking at, okay, how can I add value to this person? Even if I'm tired, I can still push through it and open up and connect with them. And it takes me out of my comfort zone as an introvert. However, I owe it to the audience.
Well, and that's really does say a lot. And again, let's look at it from the introvert's perspective, because I'm also a raging introvert. And when you come off the stage, and so I look at it like this: when I go to a networking event and I teach people, go in with purpose.
Yes.
When you go to a conference, go with purpose. Don't just, because if you don't, you're going to be overwhelmed and you won't get anything accomplished. And so when I went to IMC, that was my first time at IMC. Number one, I had no idea what to expect, but there were a number of people that I wanted to connect with. They were on my list, right? I want to connect with this person. I want to talk to them. I want to learn about this and this, that.
That's such a smart technique to go into a networking event, right? You almost got to pause there and teach that, because going in with purpose with a list, that's so smart.
Right. And when you go in with that list, don't just go, hi, I'm Tim. Bring value, right? Because you're looking, you want to add value. If you want to get value back, you have to add value. So you should know who these people are or know something about them, so that, number one, there's a conversation starter, that there's something in common that you all can build on or whatever. That's the other thing that's really important. But there were 5 key people that were on my list, and you were one of them. And I'm so glad that we did get a chance to connect. And we talked about, another person that was on the list that I didn't get, that I'm going to have to get outside of my comfort zone if I'm ever really going to be able to connect with that person, because high profile person, always surrounded by people, always trying, other people are trying to take that time. So as an introvert, we have to figure those things out.
Yeah. I say you need to invite her to your show.
You know what? Here comes the truth. Here comes the truth. Because we got to be honest, right? I've almost done it 5 times. So I haven't done it yet. It's that imposter syndrome. Why would she want to come on my show?
Been there. Yes.
And part of it, and honestly, one of the things I've been doing is what's my value proposition to her to get her to spend an hour and a half with me and my audience. That's what I have to figure out, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure she gets requests every day, and she's just, one of the things that you learn is you have to figure out how to spend your time and who you're going to spend your time with. So what kind of value can I bring for her to be able to come on the show? And, I'd like to brag, we got a pretty good sized audience here. We're ranked pretty high in, worldwide, but what kind of value can we bring? And because I know she'll bring value, period. I mean, every time I've heard her speak, she brings value.
Yes.
That's the other thing. So get outside your comfort zone, do the hard thing. As Ryan Leake would say, do it scared.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it scared. Be willing to fail, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, one here, we've talked a number of times about there are so many IT professionals in this space because for whatever reason they're trained, they're highly technical. They don't necessarily have to deal with people, but to progress anywhere, you have to learn how to communicate.
That was me growing up, for sure. Even when I first started my career, Tim, I remember I would sit at the table and they would say, "Hey, we've got this problem. Anybody have any ideas?" And I'm a natural problem solver. So I would solve the problem in my head, but I wouldn't raise my hand because I was like, "Oh, somebody else already have that," or "I figured it out too soon." Like I would doubt myself.
Right.
And then someone else would answer the same thing I was thinking about. And then I felt really bad because I was like, "Oh, I knew the answer. I knew I had to write." And I didn't speak up.
And so how'd you get over that?
For me, it was personal development, right? I started reading personal development books, and then I ended up joining Toastmasters in 2003. And that started the process of me learning how to effectively use my voice. Mm-hmm. And Toastmasters gave me an audience of people who would pay attention to you speak. And as an introvert, normally it's hard for us to get, into a conversation, right? You think you put an introvert in a room with a bunch of people who are already talking, the introvert is just going to be sitting there nodding their head because they're not going to be getting any words in. But Toastmasters put me in an environment where I was able to speak. I had people, clapping for me, giving me feedback, and that really changed me. It took a while for me to overcome that fear, but that process really changed me, Tim.
Yes. So let's kind of put this in perspective. My guess there were 1,500 people when you were speaking at IMC in the room.
Didn't even count it, but yeah.
I saw somebody at the door with a clicker there.
Oh.
But there was a lot. There was a ton of people there. I mean, this is not a 25 or 30 person. This was huge. It was packed, and so you go from sitting at a table, petrified to open your mouth about answering a question, to giving a profound, impactful, value-packed presentation for 45 minutes. That's a lot of growth. And that's one of the things I hope my audience understands. Just because you're here now doesn't mean that's where you have to stay.
Absolutely.
Right? So finding that way. How did you end up at Toastmasters? Were you nudged in that direction? Did you have a mentor or a coach or somebody say, "Micah, this is what"? Walk me through your journey. How this happened.
Yeah, so this was back in the early 2000s, like I mentioned, and I was into personal development. So one of the things I'm 51. So I had cassette tapes at the time, and I was listening to a cassette tape from Brian Tracy it was something about how to develop confidence, or confidence was a part of the title of his program. And so I was listening to it, and he said, one of the things that will help you out is joining Toastmasters. And I remember hearing about Toastmasters before, but I never really looked into it. But after Brian Tracy said that, I went and found a Toastmasters club. I showed up, and then I've been a member 20 plus years now.
So do you still go to meetings on a weekly or monthly basis?
Yes. Yeah, I'm currently active in 2 clubs. I'm also very active in my district as far as doing presentations, helping other speakers as well. So very active.
So let me follow up here real quickly. You help other speakers. This is something that, I try and harp on a lot. If we want to get better, we can't just get better for us. We have to pour into other people. We have to help. It's sometimes it's like pulling teeth. I'm dragging you along. Come with me, because you can do this. You can get better. You can. There's other people out there that need that help. And if we're in a position to help people, we should be doing that willingly, for those that want to do the work.
Absolutely. And you learn. So I know for me personally, I learn more. If I'm helping someone else overcome their fear of public speaking, then it forces me to remember back when I had those fears and think about the processes that I use as I'm coaching them through it. And so it's just a win-win scenario.
It really is. And I can't. So I've been involved with Maxwell Leadership Team for about 6-7 months now. You a lot longer. The coaches that we have access to, the mentors that we have access to, are, number one, are incredible. I mean,
yes.
And let's just talk about Roddy Galbraith for just a second. I don't think I've ever met somebody who is so willing and accessible. I mean, I could email him today, at let's just say 3:00, and if he doesn't get back to me today, I'll have something when I wake up in the morning with a comment or whatever. He listens. We can send him videos, and he
good job, Tim.
Yeah. It's funny because my wife now hears him, and she's saying what he says, but before I get out, it's good job, God bless.
Yeah.
But he's spot on, and
yes,
and if you track, at least for me, if you track video 1 and you're working on the same thing to video 5, you can see and hear the progress. What's something that he's taught you?
Well, so one, I admire the way he breaks down a speech.
Yeah.
Right. Because when I attended my first IMC, and he broke down John's keynote speech, and as far as these are the number of stories John told, these are the examples John did, and here's where he put the points in. So that helped me really understand how to organize a keynote effectively, because my logical brain would just be teach. And Roddy's like, no, you can't just teach, right? You got to break it up. You've got to have those stories in there, some type of analogy where the audience can connect. So that's really helped me out. When I went through stage time, and I've participated in his stage time multiple times. Like I typically always submit videos to him for that. But I remember one particular speech, I was talking about my grandpa Joe. And I remember the beginning, like you said, the first speech versus the one I gave on stage, it was amazing, the transformation. Like there's things when I first delivered it, I was like, oh, this is great. There's no changes. And then Roddy was like, no, okay, change this, or you've got too many points. It needs to be 1 point for this 3 minutes. And this little things that I didn't think about before.
Right.
He gave me them little small tweaks along the way, which gave me a framework to make all my other speeches and stories better.
Yeah. Let's get back to framework in a second, but I've got another question. I've seen you with a lot of videos with Les Brown.
Yes.
Tell me about that interaction, because that to me is, I'd love to spend 10 minutes with him too.
Les Brown he's an amazing human, right? I grew up listening to him when I was younger, because for me, he was probably the only Black speaker on a stage at his level. Right. And he's still doing it today, right? He's still on top, and he's 80 years old. So I've had opportunity to interview Les in person. I had opportunity to speak on the same stage as Les a couple times, and he gave me an endorsement video. So I remember sitting back having lunch with Les and just asked him, "Hey Les, will you record a testimonial for me?" He was like, "Sure." We grabbed the phone. He did it at one take. He was like, "This what I'm talking about?" Okay, boom. And his mind is so sharp. Like he actually, Tim, he asked me a couple of questions and then he retold my story. A story about me. He's like, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Michael Pope, blah, blah, blah," right? And I was sitting there blown away of how he just took that little information that I gave him and put it into a story format. He brought in quotes. He's very sharp. Brought some nice quotes to tie it in together. Absolutely amazing human.
That's awesome. And when I think about it, there are special people like that, right? That they're incredibly intelligent, brilliant people, and to be able to continue doing those things at 80 because they're continuing to do those things.
Exactly.
They can, right? You know what I'm saying, right? So they're not, okay, I'm 75. It's time to sit back. No, I've got to
be
give.
Consistent.
Be consistent, continue to give back, continue to provide value to other people. And when you look at the older generations, when they get to a certain age, they stop doing things, and that's when their mind starts to go. That's when other things happen. But if you continue doing the things that you love and you're passionate about, that you're good at, and providing value to people, you can do these things for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Like one of the things he says, "I'm going to die with a mic in my hand." He's like, "I'm keep speaking as long as I can." And he's gone through some major health challenges that would have caused most people to sit back and retire. But he's still at it. He was in, I think, Florida a couple of weeks ago. I remember seeing pictures on the internet with, I think he was at Paul Martinelli had an event and Les Brown spoke part of that. I think it was either in Texas or Florida. I don't remember now. But
that's awesome. Good. It's amazing. And when John Maxwell said a couple weeks ago that dude's 78, right? And dude is 78. He's writing 3 books. Come on now.
Exactly.
I struggle. I just finished writing 1, and I'm like, oh, I got to take a nap.
Yeah, he's writing 3 books. He's speaking all around the world, right? He's still going to all these different countries doing his Like they just got back from Argentina doing a transformation trip, and but he's living with purpose,
right? And that's the thing. That's, at least for me. I tell people I've been looking for this for a long time, right? And found the people, and it's something that has reinvigorated me and got me more passionate back into doing what I do. And it's amazing, and just how much I've learned in 6 months, how much better I've gotten in 6 months, and I've never told anybody this publicly. My wife and I have talked about it. I want to do what Roddy does. I don't necessarily want to be, the Johns or the Lesses, right?
Yeah.
I want to be Roddy. I want to be the guy that helps other people become John and Les.
That's awesome. I'm sure that's great fulfillment for Roddy, right? Just seeing all these other amazing speakers go out and because he's seen us like struggle. Like he saw Chris Robinson struggle, and then he sees Chris on big stages all around the world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so I'm actually going to see both Chris and Roddy here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, congratulations!
And I'm going to tell Roddy that. I'm going to say that's what I want to do. That's what I'm working towards. That's the direction that I want to head, because I think. I end each podcast with your voice has the power to change the world, but you have to be able to use it, and you have to know how to use it. You have to be able to formulate the thoughts and the feelings and the ideas so that people can actually understand the points that you're trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to the framework. Let's get back to it.
Yes.
I think frameworks for most people are really what they need. We don't need abstract ideas. We need easy to use, easy to understand pathways. And that's, I've been using frameworks for pretty much everything. If I find something that works, that's what I do. It becomes a go-to, it becomes habit. So talk to me about, some of the frameworks that you've built.
Absolutely. Right. So James Clear says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so systems in our case is framework, right? That's all it is, a repeatable process. And for me, one of my biggest frameworks that I use in almost every area of my life is my doer framework. And I wrote a book on it, Doers Win the Day Here. So it's an acrostic. My framework, DOER, is the acrostic. And when it comes to speaking, I use the same thing. So D for speaking, endure would be discipline. And I learned from my mentors, Tim, that I have to discipline myself to study other great communicators. Right? She told me to study other speakers. She gave me books, CDs, VHS tapes back in the day of these amazing speakers. And I continue to study speakers, which is why I'm constantly connecting with other speakers and learning from them, not trying to copy them, but learning from them. How do they connect with their audience? How do they tell stories? All of that. Right. So that's part of the framework, the D, discipline. The O is typically for either one thing, or when it comes to speaking, it was the opportunity. So my mentor, when my first speaking mentor, she told me, she said, Michael, take advantage of every opportunity to speak. And Tim, she knew that I was introverted and that I wouldn't speak up in meetings. She said, when you go to a meeting, ask a question, add value in that meeting. When you come to if you come to a Toastmasters club and there's no speeches that day, she said, I want you to get up and give a speech. And she constantly stretched me. Hey, there's an opportunity to speak over here. Go say yes, go speak. Even if you don't feel ready, go speak, right? So that's part of my framework, is taking advantage of every opportunity to speak. The E in the doer acrostic is eliminate excuses. I learned from another one of my mentors about how excuse-itis is a failure disease. And I learned to start eliminating any excuses that were holding me from doing something. So if I'm feeling nervous about speaking somewhere and the topic is in alignment with me, then I go ahead and do it, right? I break free from that. Even if I'm a little nervous, it's a bigger stage. And I've been places before. I mentioned earlier about speaking on the same stage as Les Brown. So I actually spoke right before Les Brown.
Oh my!
And he called back to something I said in my speech, which was pretty cool. But you think about like being on the same stage as him and imposter syndrome setting in, like, do you even deserve to be here? Right? You deal with those type of things, but eliminating excuses. So I had to break free from those excuses, that hesitation that's holding me back, and do it anyway.
Right.
And then R for me is all about responsibility. So it's personal responsibility for the two things that I have complete control over. One is my attitude, and the other is my actions.
That's it.
So I'm in control with the way I think. My attitude about it can either be a positive attitude, and I use affirmations to help me with that. But part of my framework is getting myself in the right frame of mind. So before I go speak, I'm letting myself, hey, Michael, you are amazing. Today, you're going to do great. Your audience loves you. They want to see you succeed. You're going to add so much value to them. So I'm constantly telling myself things like that to change my attitude. And then my actions is just me doing what I can control. So that means preparing for my speech, make sure that I know my content. That way, when I get on stage, I'm not thinking in my head about what am I going to say. I already know that. Like, that's already taken care of. Instead, I can focus on the audience, making eye contact with people, sending them love and asking them questions, and feeling completely confident knowing that I'm fully prepared for this presentation. So that's kind of how I use my doer framework.
Yeah. Let's go back to excuses for just a second.
Yeah.
With imposter syndrome, everybody has it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has it. It depends on when it shows up, how it shows up, and how we deal with it, right? So when it comes to speaking for you, where does that come from? How did that happen? Is it just because you're that introverted person, or is there something else, or how did that? Because, and again, before you answer, I read in your book about your grandfather's funeral. It tore me up. Dude, I was crying over it. And so So tell me how the imposter syndrome happened, and did it happen because of that or before that?
I said it happened before that. So I grew up as an only child, and being introverted, I was always slow to speak when someone would ask a question.
Mhm.
So what would happen is I would be around other people, and then someone else would speak for me. They would say, "Oh, yeah, Michael doesn't like that," or "Yeah, Michael doesn't want to do that. He wants to go over here with us." And I got used to having other people speak for me,
Okay.
and it made it to the point where I was like, "Well, no one wants to hear my words, right?" So then
Right.
I would just tell those stories you tell yourself.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I was. And then going back to my grandpa Joe's funeral, sitting on that row, wanting to share with his family, friends, loved ones that were there to for his funeral, wanting to share how wonderful Grandpa Joe was for me, how the type of impact he had made on me. But I was still consumed with the stories of, oh, what if I mess up? What if they don't like me? Like all those different what ifs that I was telling myself. No one else told me that. It was just things that I thought.
Right. And you and your grandfather had a special relationship.
Yeah.
And so moving forward, did that, I know eventually you decided to take steps, but moving forward initially, did that make it worse, or were you, how did that change you? How did that evolve?
It made it better because I've had the opportunity to talk about my Grandpa Joe on so many different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to look back and see, okay, even though I didn't speak up that day, I'm speaking up now. And
Right.
I still learn so much from my grandfather. I mean, so I talk in the story about how he won the Thomas Jefferson Servant Leadership Award. I still keep that on my desk as a reminder for me of just the type of man he was.
Right.
And so it constantly reminds me of creating the proper legacy, the type of legacy that I want to be able to leave, where when I'm gone, people can say, "Oh yeah, Michael added so much value to me by doing this, or the way he served, or the way he did this type of thing." And so it just fuels me.
And that gets back to where you are today. Doesn't mean that's where you have to stay. Again,
Exactly.
Right? I mean, and you're going to be better tomorrow than you are today because you're going to continue to work. Just like, which when I found out, 6 months ago that John Maxwell had a speaking coach, I said, well, if John Maxwell has a speaking coach, how come everybody doesn't have a speaking coach? If he's still at 70 some years old, still getting better, why is it that, I'm not getting better? Why is it that I'm not doing the things I need to do to get better? And that was a wake up call. Yeah. I didn't know that. Right. And so everybody can get better, but you have to do the work. That's you can't just wish to get better. You have to actually do the thing, whatever.
I know
whatever
I've paid thousands of dollars for speaking coach, like outside of the Maxwell team. Even though I have access to people like Roddy and other people in the Maxwell team, I've still hired other coaches. I mean, I'm a part of multiple speaking programs where I'm learning from other people. So one is NSA, Ohio National Speakers Association. I'm a part of that organization, learning from those people. But I've also hired coaches, people to coach me one-on-one as well.
Yeah, that's just because you've decided to get better at your craft. Yeah, and that's what everybody. I mean,
and I'll say also, so I've decided to get better, which is, I think everybody wants to get better, but also I realize that I only have so much time left on this earth. So it's like I can either stretch it out long and try to learn it myself, or I can get coaching to help me go further faster.
Yes, and that's the real key, right?
Yeah,
because the better you get, the better you get the quickest, the more value you can provide to other people.
Absolutely,
and that's the that's kind of the whole point of it. I would think, and again, I got to be honest. The excuses, when we started this, I gave excuses why I didn't reach out to the other person, why I haven't asked her. Right, that's. You got to take responsibility for that. And again, that's one thing that I for my listeners to hear that it's not that I'm perfect either, because I'm no different than they are. Still have the same thought processes. It's just taking steps to get better at it, taking steps to do whatever the thing is. Recognize it and then taking those steps. Don't just recognize
and
it and not do it.
Framework or a process in place to help you with that. Whenever that hesitation, that fear shows up, you got to have a process in place.
Absolutely. What has been your biggest, I wouldn't say fail, but your biggest embarrassment on stage? And how did you deal with it?
Embarrassment. I don't have any big embarrassments that come to mind, but I'll tell you about one example of something that years ago I would have considered an embarrassment. So my wife and I actually flew to Jamaica. I had an opportunity to speak in Jamaica last year at someone's Live to Lead event. And, I showed up early, prepared, asked to do a tech check, but they didn't want to do that. Like, they were like, "Oh, we got it. Right. The host introduces me to go speak. I was the first in-person speaker. So I go up on stage, get ready to speak. And I see the person over the desk trying to unlock, the computer to show my slides. So they had to wait for the host to come over and unlock the computer. They get the slides up. Well, they're trying to get the slides up, but it won't work. So about 20 minutes into a 40-minute presentation, they finally got the slides working. Years ago, Tim, I would have been floored, because I would have been like, what am I going to say? Everything is on the slides, right?
Right.
But thankfully, I knew my content. I knew my story. So I was able to go through without my slides. And then once they got it working, I was able to quickly, calmly, click advance to it and then show them some of the things that I had mentioned just from stage.
Right.
But the audience didn't really know, even though they knew they were working on the tech. Everybody could see that in the room. But they were like, "Oh, wow, you didn't even really need your slides. I mean, you were just so comfortable and all that." But that just takes preparation.
Right. It's preparation, practice, and when I was teaching, and I would ask the students what their process is in preparing for a 5-minute presentation or whatever, doesn't really matter. They would tell me the first thing they would do is open up PowerPoint. I said, "No, that's not. That's probably the last thing that you should do."
But, exactly, because you might not need it.
Well, John doesn't use PowerPoint. He doesn't use slides. Really? I mean, he has his iPad there, and
most of us wish he used PowerPoint just so we can write down all the bullets and take a picture.
Exactly. And but even as adults, we are so I don't know, tied into the visual, like that's going to make or break everything. And the reality is that doesn't have anything to do with it. What makes or breaks it is you, the speaker. Yes. Are you providing value to the audience? Do you know who your audience is? Have you done the work? Have you done the preparation? Have you done the practice? Have you done the things that you need to do to provide that value to the audience?
Yeah.
So what's your process? Let's say somebody calls you tomorrow, to book you for a speaking engagement in 3 months. What's your process to go from tomorrow to walking off the stage?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to know is what does success actually look like at the end of the day for this audience, right? So typically, if a company is bringing me in to speak, they have a goal in mind of what they want the audience to do. And if they don't, I'm going to ask them questions to try to get to a goal. That way we got something to measure against, right? So their goal is that, they want people just to be inspired and take more action. Then we know we have a goal in mind, right? So begin with the end in mind. And then I can work better to figure out, okay, what framework is going to really help me give them that goal. And so I'll outline some type of framework. And typically whenever I'm speaking, I organize my content in a framework, because if I'm giving a 45-minute keynote, I have it in a nice framework. Then that way, if I need to cut it because of time, I can take out part of the framework and it still flows fine. So I go through that process. And then obviously I'm gonna practice the story. I'm gonna find like, okay, what stories can help me connect these points and really
Right.
make it more relatable to the audience and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'll go through that whole part of putting the content together and practicing it. And I'll practice my stories. If I'm doing anything new, like I may take it to a Toastmasters club and practice part of the presentation. I've done it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And then my goal, Tim, is to have the content down prior to going to the event. And
Yes.
then that way, when I'm at the event, especially if it's in person, I like to go in even though I'm an introvert, like I like to go meet people and just connect with the audience a little bit beforehand.
Right.
Because I'm not thinking about my content. I want to think about, you and your needs. Why, what brings you here to this event? What are you hoping to gain today?
Right.
Type of thing. Because then once I know that, I can get on stage, and as part of my process, actually before I even get on stage, if I'm coming up like up on a stage behind a curtain, I'll look out at the audience. One of my mentors taught me this: is look at as many people as possible and just send them loving thoughts, thinking like, "Hey, I love you. I'm going to add value to you today. I love you. I'm going to add value to you today." Right. So I'm thinking about the audience, and then when I get out there, of course, deliver the content as rehearsed. However, still be flexible enough where if I need to engage with the audience, or if I need to like ask someone a direct question or something, right? I can still mold that into my presentation so it feels natural. And then my process when I finish, so part of my refreshing moment is stopping to celebrate, right? So, you get the applause, but when I'm walking off stage, in my mind, I'm thinking, Michael, you did an amazing job, right? I'm praising myself before I go out and talk to the audience.
Right. And I think that piece right there is really important because it shifts your mindset from presenter mindset to now just back being, wow, it's really good. Now I can go and be myself,
yes.
Interact with people, for however long it is. And again, I think a lot of things that we do that we don't really think about from a different perspective is all mindset. It's where are we? What mindset should we be in to do this? And what mindset do we need to switch into to go 10 feet from here? Whatever that is, because you can't be in speaker mode when you're interacting with people. You exactly. Need to be in.
Maybe thinking about your slides. I didn't say right. This, or right.
Right. Yeah. Because then there's going to be that disconnect. He's not that personable person that he looked like up on stage, right? It's very different, and then you have that disconnect, which is.
And I used to be like that. I'll be honest with you. So I used to be like that, where someone would say, like to Tim, you said, "Hey, Mike, you did a great job." I was like, "Oh no, but I forgot to say this, or I really wanted to tell the story like this, or this example." Right. But so I'm thinking all about me versus, right. Accepting, praising, thanking you for thinking that I did a great job. Right.
Exactly.
Instead of,
and then they know that it wasn't about them with just in that half a second, they already know that you think it was more about you than them. And you've lost all the credibility that you had built up.
Yeah. And I made them feel bad because they like, I went up and praised this person. Now he's telling me how, that it wasn't good. Right. So I'm questioning your judgment.
Exactly. But I love that you talk about having that framework and that preparation, because these things don't just happen.
Yeah.
You don't just get up on stage and wing it. You don't just go to a meeting and wing it. You don't go to an interview and wing it. You have to be successful at anything. I don't care what it is.
Yes.
You have to prepare.
Yeah. John talked about that a lot in the 16 undeniable laws of communication. Mm-hmm. About that, the importance of the practicing and not winging it. Even if you've done it 1,000,001 times, right?
Right.
You still practice it.
And I keep bringing this back to John. I listened to something very recently, and it comes up a lot. Somebody asked him a question, what he's thinking about right before he goes on stage, and he said he's thinking about how he can add value to the audience.
Yeah,
he's not thinking about, oh, do I need to tell this story or that story? How's he going to add value? How that's
it changes you.
It does.
Yeah.
And if you. I think if you just change your mindset just a little bit and, do the things that are going to make you successful and start thinking about how, the gifts that you have that can help other people, pour into other people, add value to other people for whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter what it is, because we all have different skill sets. We all have different interests, but if we can help people get from where they are, from point A to point B, wherever it is they want to go, that's really what this is about. And you have, at least I think you have to be willing to do the work to be able to do that, because you can want to help them and you can be selfish about it and say, well, you just do it like this. It doesn't really help anybody. You've got to help them the way that they want to be helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You got to do the work too, right? And that work happens when you're not getting applause, when you're not on stage in front of people, right? You're in a room by yourself and you're practicing your content. Either it's out loud or you're practicing in your head, but you're still doing the work, so that when you do show up on stage, everyone knows you did the work, because it's going to seem natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's critical. And I think that I talk a lot about knowing your audience and what they want, what they why are they there? How can you pour into them? How can you give them the value? That to me is before anything else. What you said it. What's the outcome? What do you want? What does success look like?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know that before you even start opening up PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Right. That's
pretty pictures and
Exactly. I'm actually taking a class right now about teaching on Zoom, speaking on Zoom.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I've been doing it for years, but again, you want to get better, what are the new techniques? And, we were discussing last night, I've got to do a different kind of presentation that I've never done before at a conference here in January. It's only 5 minutes. Okay. I say I can do it in my sleep, but I already know what I want to talk about, but I haven't scripted it out yet.
It's hard. I tell you, it's harder to do a 5-minute talk than it is to do a 45-minute talk.
It is. And I got to thank Roddy for that too, because, with these 3-minute ones.
Exactly. That's a lot harder.
But it's a what they call a pecha kucha, whatever type of thing.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
So, and now I have to worry about slides, because you get one slide every 15 seconds.
1 slide a minute or whatever. Yeah.
It does. It's every 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Yeah.
So, for me, that's because I would never even think about the slides. That's like the last. I'm thinking about, okay, this is what I want to talk about, but now I've got to think about, okay, really what I want to talk about and how I'm going to incorporate that into a slide in 15 seconds, or how that's going to be challenging, but I think it's going to be fun. It is. It really is. But if I would never suggest that to somebody who's giving a presentation for the very first time. But what would you suggest for somebody who lacks confidence for the very first time, has to give a presentation? What would be your keys to success or steps to success for them?
Yeah, I would say record yourself. Mm-hmm. So do it to yourself, right? So that's the beauty of our cell phones, right? Grab your cell phone, prop it up, and record yourself delivering it, and then go back and watch it. Mm-hmm. But watch it with a non-judging eye, and just look at yourself to see how you sound. I did so my oldest son is in a media class where he's working on a podcast. And so we recorded his first podcast episode on Sunday, and we did the intro, we played it back. He was like, "Do I really sound like that?" Like, yes, that's how you sound, right? I had to explain to him the difference between the inner ear and outer ear.
Right.
But a lot of times, a brand new person has never really seen themselves speaking on video, and you got to get used to seeing it. So that way you can give yourself proper feedback and make improvements.
Yes. And it's seeing yourself and listening to yourself is weird, and you have to get over that quick. You can't harp on that. Just get over it and move on. But let's talk about your book, Doers Win today, because I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed that book after I got done crying.
Thank you.
It was tough because I've been there, right? Maybe not in that exact way that you were, but knowing that you should have spoken up and said something and you didn't, and you let it go, and understand once you let it go, once that time passes,
there's no getting it back.
You don't get it back. But I love the book. I love the whole idea of the book, and it, to me, the title says it all.
Yes.
So what was the process there for you? How did the book come about? What was it that you're doing this framework and you're doing, and you said, well, this is what works for me. I should share it, or was it, I've got to figure out how I'm going to do or be or whatever, and came up with this and did the book. How was the process?
Yeah, so I was asked to give a 45-minute keynote back in 2022. This was on a large stage, and when I was putting my content together, I organized it using Doer, and I was like, oh, that works perfect. And so I put that together and I gave that talk. And then I started being asked to give other presentations. So I would take that Doer framework and I gave it over and over and over. And then finally I was like, man, I really need to turn this into a book. Because I did a 5-minute speech for NSA Ohio as part of our graduation type program that we did. And that was on Be a Doer. And I was like, man, if I had had my book, it would have tied in so well with that, right? So it's like those missed opportunities. I'm like, man, I'm giving this speech. It'd be better for me to have a book to go along with it. And I had a mentor that told me the same thing. He said, you want to have a book based on your keynote speech. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let me go and do that. So then it was really easy for me to develop it. So once I made a decision to do it, I put it together in less than a month.
Yeah. I just kind of did. I literally am finishing up doing the exact same thing. Yeah, I wrote a book about 12 years ago, and I said I'd never do it again. And then I was
technology helps now.
But I was on a call with Mark Cole, and he said something that just it triggered me. It was like, that's it, and it just happened. And those are good things. It was a good trigger. That's to me that was like a key. But with Doers Win the Day, one chapter that again really resonated with me was the idea of celebrating small wins.
Yes,
because I think so much, and this is definitely for me. I don't celebrate small wins. That's not what winners do. Winners, it's not over till it's over. That's just a step in the process. We're not going to celebrate nothing till it's over. And that was my mindset for the longest time. So talk about the whole idea of celebrating small wins and why that's so important to our successes.
Yeah, it's so important, because if you wait till you win the Super Bowl to celebrate, right? If you don't celebrate that first win when, you're playing against this team that's just okay, right? If you don't celebrate that win, you're never going to make it to the Super Bowl to celebrate the big win.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to celebrate every day. And so one of my sons, I mentioned before, I have 3 sons. My 17-year-old, he's still learning how to drive. So him and I will go out on a regular basis, teach him how to drive. But I always make sure that after we're done, before we talk about areas of improvement and all that, we stop to recognize what he did well, so we can have something to celebrate. Right? I think that's so important, just to reinforce that, yes, I did this type of thing. And we need that in our lives, because a lot of people, Tim, they'll wait till, December 31st, and they look back on the year and they're like, oh, okay, I didn't hit this goal. I didn't hit that goal, right? They're focused on what they didn't do, versus if every single day, if they celebrated, hey, I won the day today by doing this. I won the day today by doing this. I mean, at the end of the year, you've got so many different wins. You're going to feel like you're going to really see your growth. Because most of us don't see our growth, but if you celebrate it every single day, you've grown.
Right. And it builds that momentum, right? It builds that momentum. Just like if you have that negative self-talk, that builds that momentum too.
Exactly. It slows you down. You say, okay, I just why even try, right? Yeah, you deal with that.
Right. You don't do something on Monday. You say, well, okay, I'm just going to take the week off. I'll start again next week. That's just, guess what? That turns in, I'll start next month, which that's, well,
next year,
July. It's July. I'll just start next year.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, though, right? I mean, because you're going to have bad days. I mean, there's going to be days when you don't get things accomplished, but you have to be able to look back and say, okay, well, I did get this accomplished. I did do this, or I did do that. And it's about that momentum that builds consistency, that builds that desire to continue doing it. It's just so important. And I think a lot of people need to change their mindset. Yeah.
Right. So even something like this, like, I'm going to applaud myself for having a successful podcast interview, because there was a time in my life when I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without being nervous and feeling like I had to be perfect with every word. And
yes, nobody wants perfect anyway.
Exactly.
Right. Nobody wants perfect. So, well, Michael, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
You're welcome.
I can't thank you enough. Where can people connect with you and find out what you're doing?
Yeah, so a couple places. One, you can get the book Doers Win the Day. You can go to doerswintheday.com. You can also find it on Amazon. And you can also connect with me at michaelpopetraining.com.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. Take care and look forward to catching up with you real soon.
Thank you.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forum for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change your world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. That's it for today's episode. But before you go, don't forget to grab your copy of my brand new book, Connections That Count: How to Transform Your Network into Influence, Leadership, and Career Growth. Available now on Amazon. It's time to turn your network into real influence and career growth. Pick it up today and start making your connections count.